The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. Emma, it's Dad. His voice had that careful tone he used when delivering bad news. I wanted to talk to you about the retirement party next month. I set down my pen. What about it? Well, Carol's been planning it for weeks and... He paused. Her colleagues from Prestige Consulting are all coming. C-suite executives, venture capitalists, some local politicians. It's going to be a very sophisticated crowd. I waited. What I'm trying to say is, maybe it would be better if you sat this one out. You understand, right? These are Carol's professional connections. Important people. And with your situation it might just be uncomfortable. For everyone. My situation. That's what he called it. You mean because I work from home? I kept my voice neutral. It's not just that, Emma. You don't have a corporate job, you don't network in those circles, and Carol's friends might ask questions about what you do. It would put us all in an awkward position trying to explain. I see. I knew you'd understand. You've always been so reasonable about these things. Carol really appreciates it. This party means a lot to her career. After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long moment looking at the framed photo on my desk. It was from my college graduation 12 years ago. Dad had his arm around me, both of us smiling. Mom had died 3 years earlier, and it had been just the two of us figuring things out together. That man felt like a stranger now. Dad had met Carol 2 years ago at a networking event. She was a senior consultant at Prestige Consulting International, polished and ambitious, 15 years younger than him. They married within 8 months. I'd been invited to the wedding, but only because leaving out the bride's new stepdaughter would have looked bad. The shift had been gradual but unmistakable. Dad stopped calling to check in. He canceled our monthly dinners. When I did see him, Carol was always there, steering conversations toward her work, her connections, her vision for their future. A future that clearly didn't include me. What Dad didn't know, what Carol definitely didn't know, was what I actually did for a living. After Mom died, she left me a modest inheritance. Not enough to retire on, but enough to invest. I'd always been good with numbers, fascinated by market patterns and financial systems. So I started small, learning everything I could about venture capital and private equity. By 25, I'd turned Mom's $200,000 into $2.3 million. By 30, I was managing a private investment portfolio worth $47 million. Now, at 32, I ran a boutique investment firm from my home office, specializing in early-stage capital for promising companies. My net worth was somewhere north of $80 million, though I'd stopped tracking the exact number. It didn't matter. Money had never been the point. I kept my success private for several reasons. First, I'd learned early that wealth changed how people treated you, and not always for the better. Second, I wanted to see who genuinely cared about me versus who wanted something from me. Third, and most importantly, I enjoyed the freedom of anonymity. No pressure, no expectations, no fake relationships. Dad thought I did something with computers from home. He'd never asked for details. Carol assumed I was barely scraping by, probably living off whatever remained of Mom's inheritance. Neither of them knew that 2 years ago, when Carol was desperately seeking capital to expand Prestige Consulting's West Coast operations, I was the anonymous investor who provided $2.8 million in funding through one of my shell companies. I'd done my due diligence first. Prestige Consulting had solid fundamentals and a good growth trajectory. The investment made financial sense. The fact that it was Carol's company was coincidental. I told myself I was just making a smart business decision. But I'd also been curious. I wanted to see what kind of businesswoman had captured my father's attention. What kind of person she really was. The investment contract was straightforward. Capital infusion in exchange for preferred shares and a seat on the advisory board, which I attended remotely through my lawyer. Carol never knew who the real investor was. To her, I was just Cascade Capital Holdings, another faceless entity in her cap table. That $2.8 million had allowed Carol to open 2 new offices, hire 15 additional consultants, and land several Fortune 500 clients. Prestige Consulting's revenue had grown by 340% in 2 years. Carol loved taking credit for that growth. I'd heard her brag about it at Dad's birthday dinner last year, how her vision and leadership had transformed the company. She never mentioned the mystery investor who'd made it possible. Now, sitting in my office, I opened my laptop and pulled up the investment file. The contract had a standard withdrawal clause. With 90 days notice, I could reclaim my capital. It would leave Prestige Consulting operational but significantly constrained. Carol would have to scale back expansion plans, potentially close the newer offices, maybe lay off staff. I'd never considered exercising that clause. He'll know. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Thanks for being understanding about the party. Carol says we'll all have dinner sometime soon. Maybe next month. Next month. Always next month. I looked at the photo on my desk again. Then I picked up my phone and called my lawyer, Michael Chin. Emma, what can I do for you? I need to initiate a capital withdrawal from Prestige Consulting International. Full amount, 90-day notice as per contract. Silence on the other end. Are you sure? That's going to hurt them significantly. I'm sure. May I ask why? Personal reasons. Understood. I'll draft the notice today. It'll go out tomorrow morning. Should I expect pushback? Probably. But the contract is clear. They can't prevent it. Agreed. I'll handle it. Emma, are you okay? I smiled slightly. Michael had been Mom's lawyer first, then mine. He knew the whole story. I'm fine, Michael. Just tired of being invisible. After we hung up, I spent the evening working on other projects. I didn't think about the retirement party or Carol's impending crisis. I had quarterly reports to review, 3 potential investments to evaluate, and a call with a startup founder in the morning. By the time I went to bed, I'd almost forgotten about the withdrawal notice. Almost. The next morning, I was reviewing financial statements when my phone rang. Dad's number. I let it go to voicemail. He called again 30 minutes later. Then an hour after that. Finally, around noon, he sent a text. Emma, we need to talk. Call me. I didn't respond. At 2 p.m. my doorbell rang. Through the window I saw Dad's car in my driveway. I considered not answering. Then I opened the door. Dad stood on my porch, his face flushed. Carol was behind him, her expression tight with barely controlled anger. We need to talk, Dad said. Now. I stepped aside. They entered my small living room, Carol's eyes sweeping over my modest furniture with thinly veiled disdain. Do you know anything about Cascade Capital Holdings? Dad asked without preamble. Should I? Don't play games, Emma. Carol's voice was sharp. We received a withdrawal notice this morning. Some anonymous investor is pulling $2.8 million out of my company. With 90 days notice. Do you have any idea what that's going to do to us? I sat down on my couch. Why would I know anything about that? Because the timing is suspicious, Carol snapped. The day after your father explains why you can't come to the retirement party, this happens. That's quite a coincidence. Is it? I looked at Dad. You think I somehow arranged for a multi-million-dollar investment withdrawal because I'm not invited to a party? Dad's face softened slightly. It does sound crazy when you say it like that. It sounds crazy because it is crazy, Carol said. But I've learned to never underestimate spite. Maybe you have connections we don't know about. Maybe you know someone at Cascade Capital. Carol, I work from home doing freelance data analysis. I don't have connections to venture capital firms. It wasn't technically a lie. I didn't have connections to Cascade Capital Holdings. I was Cascade Capital Holdings. Then it's just terrible timing, Carol said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. My company is about to lose nearly $3 million in funding, right before we're supposed to celebrate your father's retirement with my professional network. Forgive me for being suspicious. I'm sorry about your business problems, I said carefully. But I don't see what they have to do with me. Dad sank onto my couch, suddenly looking exhausted. Carol's been on the phone all morning with her board and her lawyer. This withdrawal is going to force them to close the Portland office and possibly Seattle. 15 people might lose their jobs. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate. Carol's voice rose. That's all you have to say? These are people's livelihoods, Emma. Families who depend on those salaries. Then maybe you should have maintained better relationships with your investors, I said quietly. Made sure they felt valued. Carol's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means that investors pull funding when they lose confidence in leadership. Maybe this investor doesn't think you're making good decisions anymore. You little, Carol caught herself visibly forcing calm. I've grown that company 340% in 2 years. My decisions are excellent. Are they? I met her gaze. Because from what I understand, a lot of that growth came from that initial $2.8 million infusion. Take that away and what's left? How do you even know the amount? Carol demanded. I shrugged. Lucky guess. You mentioned nearly $3 million. I rounded. Dad stood up. This isn't productive. Emma, if you do somehow know someone connected to this, if there's any way you could help Carol reach out to them. I can't help you. Can't or won't? Carol asked coldly. Does it matter? Dad looked at me like he didn't recognize me. What happened to you, Emma? You used to be so kind, so understanding. Now you're just cold. The words stung more than I expected. I'm exactly who I've always been, Dad. You just stopped paying attention. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time you called me? Not to ask for something or cancel plans, but just to talk. When's the last time you asked about my life, my work, anything that matters to me? We've both been busy. You've been busy with Carol. With her career, her friends, her world. I stopped existing to you the day you married her. That's not true, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. It is true. And you know what? I accepted it. I moved on. Built my own life. You don't get to show up now and demand that I fix Carol's problems. Carol stepped forward. You're being incredibly selfish. People are going to lose their jobs because you built your company on unstable funding and didn't plan for contingencies, I interrupted. That's not my fault. That's bad business. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? I smiled slightly. Tell me, Carol, when you received that initial $2.8 million investment 2 years ago, did you read the contract carefully? Did you note the withdrawal clause? Did you plan for what would happen if that investor decided to leave? Carol went pale. How do you? Or did you just take the money and assume it would always be there? Did you expand too quickly, hire too aggressively, make commitments you couldn't sustain without that capital? That's confidential information. How could you possibly know? I'm guessing, I said. But I'm right, aren't I? The silence confirmed it. Dad looked between us, confusion written across his face. I don't understand what's happening here. Your daughter is somehow connected to the investor pulling out of my company, Carol said flatly. I don't know how, but she is. Emma. Dad's voice was uncertain. I stood up. I think you should both leave now. Not until you tell us what you know, Carol demanded. I don't owe you any explanations. You came here with accusations and demands. You can leave with nothing. Emma, please. Dad's voice cracked slightly. If you can help, even just make an introduction to whoever this investor is. Carol's worked so hard on this company. It would destroy her to lose it all. Would it? I looked at him steadily. The way it would have destroyed me to miss my own father's retirement party? That's completely different. Is it? You're asking me to care about Carol's feelings, Carol's career, Carol's dreams. But when have either of you cared about mine? This is ridiculous, Carol said. You're comparing a party invitation to people's jobs. I'm comparing being erased from my father's life to being expected to solve his wife's business problems. And you know what? I'm done with both. I walked to the front door and opened it. Please leave. Carol stormed past me without another word. Dad paused at the threshold. I don't know what's happened to you, he said quietly. But this isn't who your mother raised. The words hit like a physical blow. But I kept my voice steady. Mom raised me to know my worth. To not let people treat me like I'm invisible. You're the one who forgot that. Dad left without responding. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Just got a very angry call from Prestige Consulting's lawyer. They want to negotiate. What should I tell them? I typed back. Contract stands. No negotiations. 3 dots appeared then. Understood. They're not going to take this well. I know. Over the next 2 weeks things escalated. Carol hired a private investigator to look into Cascade Capital Holdings. The shell company was legitimate and legally bulletproof, but I knew she was digging hard. Dad called every few days, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to angry to confused. I didn't respond. The retirement party was 3 weeks away. Then one evening my doorbell rang again. This time it was just Dad. He looked terrible. Exhausted, older somehow. Can we talk? He asked. Just us. No Carol, no accusations. Please. I let him in. We sat in my living room, an awkward silence stretching between us. Finally, Dad spoke. Carol thinks you're the investor. Does she? She can't prove it. The corporate structure is too complex, apparently. But she's convinced. He looked at me. Emma, I need you to tell me the truth. Are you Cascade Capital? I considered lying. Considered keeping the secret a little longer. Instead, I said, yes. Dad's face went through several expressions: shock, disbelief, confusion. That's impossible. Where would you get $2.8 million? Mom's inheritance. Plus 12 years of smart investing. But that was only $200,000. In 2013. It's worth considerably more now. He stared at me. How much more? Enough that I don't have to worry about money. Ever. Why didn't you tell me? When? Between you canceling our dinners and avoiding my calls? Or maybe when you told me not to come to your retirement party because I'd embarrass Carol? Dad flinched. That's not. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it then? He was quiet for a long moment. Carol has very specific ideas about image and networking. She thought having you there with your lifestyle might raise questions she didn't want to answer. High lifestyle, I repeated. You mean being successful quietly instead of loudly? You're really that wealthy? I manage an $80 million portfolio, Dad. I own this house outright. I have no debt. I work because I enjoy it, not because I have to. So yes, I'm really that wealthy. He looked around my modest living room like he was seeing it for the first time. Why do you live like this if you have that kind of money? Because I don't need a mansion to be happy. I don't need expensive cars or designer clothes or impressive parties. I need work that challenges me and people who care about me for who I am, not what I have. And you invested in Carol's company? 2 years ago. It was a good opportunity. I didn't do it because of you or her. I did it because the numbers made sense. But now you're pulling out. Yes. Because of the party invitation. Because I'm tired, Dad. I felt suddenly exhausted. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being the daughter who doesn't measure up. Tired of watching you build a new life that has no room for me. Emma. You married Carol and that was fine. I wanted you to be happy. But you didn't just marry her. You adopted her entire worldview. Her priorities became your priorities. Her friends became your only friends. And I became inconvenient. That's not true. Isn't it? Name one time in the last year you've called just to see how I'm doing. One dinner where Carol didn't dominate the conversation. One moment where you chose me over her preferences. Silence. I invested in her company when she needed capital, I continued. I never told her who I was. Never asked for recognition or special treatment. I just provided the funding that let her build what she has now. And the first time I'm not invited somewhere, she's perfectly fine with it. Because I'm not impressive enough for her colleagues. She doesn't know it was you. It doesn't matter if she knows. What matters is that I'm your daughter, and you told me not to come to your retirement party. You valued her image over our relationship. So now she's learning what happens when you treat your investors, your family, like they're disposable. Dad's face crumbled. I'm sorry. God, Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I didn't realize. Realize what? That I was losing you. That I'd already lost you. We sat in silence for several minutes. The withdrawal is going to devastate Carol's company, Dad finally said. I know. 15 people will lose their jobs. I know that too. Is there any way to change your mind? I looked at my father, this man who used to be my hero. Who used to put me first. Who used to know me. If I withdraw the notice, what happens? Carol keeps her offices. Everyone keeps their jobs. We all move forward. And me? Do I get invited to the retirement party? Dad hesitated. Just for a second, but I saw it. You're thinking about whether Carol would agree, I said quietly. You're weighing my feelings against her comfort. Still. Emma, it's complicated. It's not complicated. It's simple. I'm your daughter. She's your wife. Both can be true. Both should matter. They do matter. Then prove it. Not with words, Dad. With choices. He looked down at his hands. What do you want me to do? I want you to go home and think about what matters to you. Really think about it. Not what Carol wants or what looks good to her colleagues, but what you want. What kind of father you want to be. What kind of man. And if I choose wrong? Then the withdrawal stands and you'll have your answer about who you've become. Dad stood slowly, moving like an old man. I love you, Emma. I know I haven't shown it, but I do. I love you too, Dad. That's why this hurts so much. He left without another word. 3 days before the retirement party, I received a phone call from an unknown number. Is this Emma Morrison? A woman's voice, professional but uncertain. Yes. Who's this? My name is Patricia Reeves. I'm on the board of Prestige Consulting International. I was hoping we could meet. I don't think we have anything to discuss. Please. Just 30 minutes. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. I'll buy you lunch. Something in her voice made me agree. Patricia turned out to be a woman in her 60s, impeccably dressed, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Thank you for coming, she said as we sat down with coffee. I wasn't sure you would. I'm curious why you wanted to meet. Because Carol is making a mistake and I think you might be the only person who can help her see it. I raised an eyebrow. Interesting take. I've been on the Prestige board since before Carol became CEO, Patricia explained. I've watched her build this company from the ground up. She's brilliant, driven, absolutely ruthless in pursuit of success. That doesn't sound like a mistake. The mistake is forgetting that success without relationships is hollow. That business without humanity is ultimately unsustainable. Patricia met my eyes. I know your Cascade Capital. How? Because I've been in this business for 40 years and I've learned to read patterns. The timing of the withdrawal, Carol's panic about her stepdaughter, the way your father suddenly started asking questions about corporate structures. She smiled slightly. Plus, I had lunch with Michael Chen last week. He didn't confirm anything, but lawyers have tells just like everyone else. Does Carol know? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Patricia leaned forward. Why did you invest in Prestige? The fundamentals were strong. Good growth trajectory, solid management. No, Patricia interrupted gently. The real reason. I was quiet for a moment. I wanted to see if she was worth it. If she was worth losing my father over. And I don't think he should have had to choose. Patricia nodded slowly. You're right. He shouldn't have. But Carol has very particular views about image and success. She came from nothing, built herself up through sheer determination. Sometimes that makes people afraid. Afraid of looking weak, afraid of being seen as less than. Fear makes us do cruel things. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, it doesn't. But it might explain it. Patricia took a sip of her coffee. If you pull that funding, 15 people lose their jobs. Carol loses half her company. Your father loses the retirement celebration he's been looking forward to. And you? What? You prove that you can hurt them. But you don't prove that you're better than their cruelty. You just match it. The words stung because they were partially true. What are you suggesting? Come to the retirement party, Patricia said. Let Carol see who you really are. Let her and your father understand what they almost lost. Then decide whether to withdraw your investment or not. But make the decision from a place of strength, not hurt. You think that will change anything? I think Carol is about to learn a very expensive lesson about respect. Whether she learns it through public humiliation or private enlightenment is up to you. The retirement party was held at the Riverside Country Club, the kind of place with valet parking and waiters in bow ties. I arrived in my usual style. Simple black dress, minimal jewelry, my old Camry handed off to a valet who looked vaguely disappointed. Inside, the ballroom was decorated with congratulatory banners. About 100 people milled around. Executives in expensive suits, women in designer dresses, everyone radiating success and self-importance. I saw Carol immediately, holding court near the bar, laughing with a group of colleagues. Dad was beside her, smiling but looking tired. Neither of them had seen me yet. I made my way to the bar and ordered a glass of wine. Then I waited. Patricia found me first. You came. You made a compelling argument. Are you ready for this? I have no idea what this is. Patricia smiled. You will. She moved to the small stage at the front of the room and tapped the microphone. Good evening, everyone. If you could take your seats, we're about to begin. People settled at round tables. I chose one near the back. Dad finally saw me. His face went through shock, confusion, then something that might have been hope. He leaned over to whisper something to Carol. Carol's head snapped around. When she spotted me, her expression went cold. Patricia began with the standard retirement speech. Dad's accomplishments, his dedication, his impact on the company. Then she shifted gears. Robert's retirement also marks a significant moment for Prestige Consulting, Patricia said. As many of you know, we've experienced tremendous growth over the past 2 years. That growth was made possible by a significant capital investment from an anonymous source. Tonight, that investor has agreed to reveal their identity. The room went silent. Carol's face had gone white. Patricia looked directly at me. Would you join me on stage, please? Every head turned. I stood slowly and walked to the front. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Everyone, Patricia said, I'd like you to meet Emma Morrison, Robert's daughter, and the sole owner of Cascade Capital Holdings, the investor who provided the $2.8 million that transformed this company. The silence was deafening. I took the microphone. 2 years ago, I invested in Prestige Consulting because it had strong fundamentals and excellent growth potential. I chose to remain anonymous because I wanted the investment to succeed on its own merits, not because of my relationship to Robert. I found Carol in the crowd. She looked like she might be sick. That investment allowed Prestige to open new offices, hire talented people, and land major clients. I'm proud of what this company has accomplished. But recently, I filed notice to withdraw my capital. Murmurs rippled through the room. I'm sure many of you are wondering why. The answer is simple. I made a business decision based on changing circumstances. When you invest in a company, you're not just investing in the business model, you're investing in leadership, in values, in how people treat each other when they think no one important is watching. I paused, letting that sink in. 3 weeks ago, I was uninvited from this party. Not because of any conflict or scheduling issue, but because my lifestyle didn't fit the image my father's wife wanted to project to her colleagues. Because I would be an embarrassment to the sophisticated crowd she was trying to impress. Carol stood abruptly, but Patricia's hand on her shoulder pushed her back down. I want to be clear, I continued. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because it illustrates a fundamental business principle. Relationships matter. How you treat people matters. The quiet person in the corner might be your biggest investor. The unimpressive colleague might be your most valuable asset. The daughter you exclude might be the reason your company exists at all. I set down the microphone and looked directly at Dad. I came tonight because someone convinced me that proving I could hurt you was less important than showing you who I've become. But I think you need to decide something too, Dad. What kind of man you want to be. What kind of life you want to have. I walked off the stage. The room remained silent as I made my way back to my table. But I didn't sit down. Instead, I headed for the exit. Dad caught up with me in the lobby. Emma, wait. Please. I turned. I was wrong, he said, and his voice was shaking. About everything. About Carol, about the party, about what matters. I was so focused on building this new life that I forgot the most important part of my old one. I forgot you. I know. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking for it anyway. And I'm asking for another chance. Not as the father I've been, but as the father I should have been all along. Behind him, Carol appeared in the doorway. She looked small, somehow diminished. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. Several apologies, actually. I judged you without knowing you. I excluded you because I was afraid you'd, I don't know, make me look bad somehow. That says everything about my insecurities and nothing about you. You're right about that, I said. I'd like to make it right. If you'll let me. How? Carol glanced back at the ballroom. By starting over. By treating you like family instead of like a problem to be managed. By learning who you actually are instead of assuming. I looked between them, my father with his hopeful, guilty expression, and Carol with her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to put the capital withdrawal on hold for 90 days. During that time you're going to show me, not tell me, show me, that you understand what you almost lost. Not the money. Me. We will, Dad said immediately. If after 90 days I believe you've learned something, I'll consider restoring the full investment. If not, the withdrawal proceeds and we part ways. Permanently. That's fair, Carol said. One more thing, I added. I want monthly dinners. Just the three of us. No colleagues, no networking, no business talk unless I bring it up. Just family. Done, Dad said. I nodded and turned to leave. Emma. Dad's voice stopped me. For what it's worth, your mother would be incredibly proud of who you've become. I felt tears prick my eyes but didn't let them fall. I hope so. 3 months later, I sat in my home office reviewing the quarterly reports from Prestige Consulting. Strong numbers, sustainable growth, good leadership decisions. But more importantly, my calendar showed 12 weekly dinners with Dad and Carol. 12 conversations where they asked about my work and actually listened. 12 evenings where I felt like someone's daughter instead of someone's problem. It wasn't perfect. Carol still occasionally slipped into corporate speak, and Dad still sometimes deferred to her judgment too quickly. But they were trying. That was enough. For now. I opened my email and typed a message to Michael. Cancel the withdrawal. Restore full investment status. Draft new contract with updated terms. I want quarterly family dinners written into the advisory agreement. Michael's response came immediately. You're joking about the dinner clause. I'm completely serious. That's the most unusual investment term I've ever seen. Good. Maybe it'll catch on. I hit send and turned back to my other work. Outside my window, spring was arriving. Trees budding, flowers blooming, everything coming back to life. Sometimes the best investment isn't measured in dollars. Sometimes it's measured in second chances. And sometimes, just sometimes, people are worth the risk.